something behind the scenes at St. James Park has been catching the attention of those who follow Newcastle United more closely. It is not an official announcement, not an unexpected press conference, and certainly not an explosive statement on social media. Even so, there are clear signs that important moves are being discussed away from the spotlight, creating an unusual atmosphere among supporters. When decisions start being made in silence, it is usually because something big is at stake, and those who love the club tend to sense it before the news breaks. In recent days, side conversations, cross-checked information, and small clues left by people close to the club have begun to circulate among journalists and European market insiders. This is the kind of information that does not appear out of nowhere, but often precedes significant changes. For supporters, it creates that uncomfortable feeling that something may be about to change, even without knowing exactly what's. And it is precisely in moments like these that paying close attention to every detail matters, because many important stories begin this way. If you like staying ahead of Newcastle news, you already know how these situations usually unfold. While the team remains focused on its on-pitch commitments, off the field the atmosphere feels more tense than usual. The club is going through a phase of consolidation, with clear ambitions and strategic decisions being taken with the medium and long term in mind. However, every big ambition brings difficult choices, and those choices do not always please everyone. There are names within the squad that represent more than just numbers or statistics, and any discussion involving those players naturally stirs emotions among the fan base. This sense of expectation intensifies because we are not talking about just any player, but someone who has built a deep connection with the club and its supporters over the years. When rumors begin to point towards possible changes involving figures like this, the impact is immediate. Many start to question whether Newcastle are truly prepared to move forward at any cost, or if there is still room to preserve important symbols from this recent era of the club. These doubts keep supporters engaged from start to finish. A potentially turbulent departure from Newcastle is being planned for a true hero of St. James Park, someone who has worn the club's shirt in 241 official matches. Eddie Howe, a central figure in the current project, has already made his position very clear internally, and that has completely changed the landscape. What once seemed distant is now being treated as a genuine possibility within the club's corridors. We are talking about Joelinton, one of the most influential names at Newcastle United in recent years. The Brazilian has once again attracted interest from the Saudi Pro League, with powerful clubs seriously considering a move as early as the January transfer window. According to sources close to the talks, this interest is far from superficial, and there are concrete reasons to believe a deal could progress, even in the face of Eddie Howe's well-known reluctance to lose key squad members. Joelinton joined Newcastle in July 2019 from Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga for a then-club rector fee of around £40 million. Initially signed as a striker, the Brazilian struggled to meet expectations in that role. It was only after Eddie Howe's arrival that his career at the club took a definitive turn. The decision to drop him deeper and turn him into a dynamic midfielder revealed a completely different player, intense, physical, and vital to the team's balance. That transformation made Joelinton one of the fans' favorites on Tyneside. Over 241 appearances, he established himself as a symbol of commitment, strength, and identification with the club. His current contract runs until the 30th of June 2028, which at first glance would suggest total security regarding his future. However, modern football is rarely just about contract length, especially when financial and strategic interests come into play. Sources indicate that Joelinton's time at Newcastle could indeed be approaching its end. Saudi Pro League clubs, who had previously shown interest in the player, have returned with greater determination. During the last European summer, these clubs went as far as holding talks with representatives of both the player and Newcastle to understand the conditions of a potential deal. At that time, the English club decided that a departure was not viable. Now, the scenario has changed. The Pro League has renewed its inquiries, and the fact that Newcastle are owned by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund naturally facilitates dialogue between the parties. This does not mean negotiations are simple or automatic, but it creates a context in which deeper discussions can take place. For supporters, this connection sparks both curiosity and concern about how far the club might be willing to go. Eddie Howe's stance is one of the most important elements of this story. Despite there being no official offer on the table at present, the manager has made it clear to the board that he does not want to weaken the squad at the start of the year. Howe understands Joelinton's importance both on and off the pitch, and knows that losing a player of his profile could directly affect the team's performance at a crucial stage of the season. Even so, we have been informed that Newcastle could consider a permanent transfer if certain conditions were met. Among them would be a guarantee that the funds raised would be immediately reinvested in the signing of one or even two new players to strengthen the squad. If such a commitment were made by the board, the departure could be viewed differently, even if against the manager's wishes. In recent months, Newcastle have already strengthened their midfield options with the arrival of Jacob Ramsey in a high-value transfer, along with significant investment in players such as Nick Woltemade and Johan Wissa. These moves show the club is alert to the market and willing to spend to maintain a competitive level. Financially, Newcastle are in a solid position, but that does not remove the need for smart strategic decisions. From an economic perspective, there is also the issue of market value. Joelinton will turn 30 in August, and as his contract progresses, his value is likely to decrease. Recovering a significant fee now could be seen internally as a business opportunity, especially if the offer from Saudi Arabia is considered very high. This kind of calculation, although cold, is part of the reality for major clubs. While all this unfolds behind the scenes, Joelinton is dealing with a delicate physical situation. The midfielder is recovering from a groin injury and has missed Newcastle's last 3 matches. There is hope for a late fitness assessment to determine whether he can be included in the squad to face Manchester United on Boxing Day, a fixture of huge visibility and importance. On the pitch, his performances this season have also attracted some isolated criticism. Known for his energy and intensity, Joelinton appears to have delivered displays below his usual standard at certain moments. In his last start, against Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League, he won just 2 of 9 duels, a figure below expectations for a player of his profile. Journalist Mark Douglas, in an analysis published in October, stated that the South American was far from his best form, reinforcing the perception that something was not working as it once did. These assessments, combined with his physical situation and market interest, inevitably weigh into the club's evaluation of his future. For supporters, the situation creates mixed emotions. On one hand, there is appreciation for everything Joelinton has given in a Newcastle shirt. On the other, there is an understanding that the club is pursuing an ambitious project, where difficult decisions may be unavoidable. These are exactly the moments that shape the direction of a team aiming to establish itself among England's and Europe's elite. If you follow Newcastle closely and want to understand every detail behind these decisions, it is worth staying tuned here. Stories like this do not resolve overnight, and new developments can emerge at any moment. Being well informed makes all the difference in understanding not just what happens, but why it happens. The information presented in this report is based on investigations from sources close to the club and coverage by British media outlets, including analyses published by journalists such as Mark Douglas, as well as reports in the English sporting press regarding Saudi Pro League interest in Joelinton. As new confirmations emerge, we will continue to monitor the situation closely. Joelinton's future at Newcastle United is still not defined, but one thing is certain. The coming months promise to be decisive. For those who love the club, every detail matters and every move deserves attention. And if you want to keep receiving exclusive news, in-depth analysis and behind-the-scenes coverage of Newcastle, consider subscribing to the channel. That way, you will not miss any chapter of a story that is still far from over.